Visual: a rapid-fire montage of modern drudgery, an alarm clock showing 6 a.m. A tired face in a bathroom mirror. A finger endlessly scrolling on a phone. A massive traffic jam. A person staring blankly at a spreadsheet, the clack of a keyboard. Narrator: it's another Monday. Or Tuesday. Or maybe it's a Friday that feels just like a Monday. The tasks are the same, the emails keep coming. The mountain of work you conquered yesterday has magically reappeared this morning, just as big, just as imposing. And in a quiet moment, as you stare at the screen, a question creeps in from the edges of your mind. What is the point? You feel like you're running on a treadmill, putting in all the effort, all the sweat, but ultimately going nowhere. You are pushing a giant boulder up a steep hill, and just as you near the top, exhausted but hopeful, you feel it slip. And you watch, helpless, as it tumbles all the way back to the bottom. Narrator: this feeling has a name, an ancient one. This is the punishment of Sisyphus. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was a king clever enough to cheat death not once, but twice. For his defiance, the gods devised a punishment they believed to be the most dreadful imaginable, not simple pain, but eternal, meaningless labor. He was condemned to push a boulder up a mountain, forever. The cruelty wasn't in the effort. It was in the futility. The gods knew that there is no more terrible punishment than useless and hopeless work. His torture was the conscious knowledge that every drop of his sweat, every strained muscle, every inch of progress, would be erased.
The boulder always rolls back down. Visual: we see the boulder reach the peak and then slowly, inevitably, begin to roll back down the other side.
Sisyphus watches it go, his shoulders slumped. Narrator: this is the symbol of the absurd life. The daily grind that seems to lead nowhere, the project that gets cancelled, the diet you can't stick to, the endless cycle of chores. It is the perfect metaphor for despair. But what if the gods failed? What if the most soul-crushing punishment ever conceived actually contained the secret to a deeply meaningful life? Visual: close up on the animated Sisyphus's face as he turns to walk back down the hill to start again. A subtle, knowing, almost defiant smile touches his lips. The music swells slightly with a note of inspiration. Narrator: in his legendary essay, the philosopher Albert Camus looked at this myth of ultimate despair and found something else entirely. He found a hero. He found freedom. He ended his essay with one of the most powerful and revolutionary sentences in all of philosophy. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Happy? How? How can a man condemned to an eternity of pointless struggle be happy? Because in that moment, when the boulder is gone, when he walks back down the mountain to start again, he is free. He is conscious of his fate. He knows its full extent. And by choosing to walk back down, to face the rock again on his own terms, he is in revolt. He is the master of his days.
The struggle itself, the conscious act of pushing despite the absurdity, that is his victory. This isn't just an old myth. This is a practical blueprint for survival in the modern world.
It's a guide for finding meaning when your work feels meaningless. It's the key to transforming your personal boulder from a curse into a purpose. So today, we're not just going to talk about philosophy.
We're going to steal the fire from the gods. We'll break down exactly how to apply the wisdom of Sisyphus to your job, your goals, and your life, so you can stop feeling crushed by the weight of it all, and start finding strength in the struggle itself.
Narrator: the first step is the simplest, and the hardest. You must be honest. You must look at the boulder for what it is. So much of our modern misery comes from pretending. Pretending the pointless meeting is important. Pretending the bureaucratic busy work is productive. Pretending that the 10th revision of a memo that no one will read actually matters. This is a lie, a toxic form of positivity that drains more energy than the work itself. Sisyphus isn't happy because he's convinced himself he's building a pyramid. He isn't smiling because he's pretending the boulder is a beach ball.
He is happy in spite of the boulder. He knows its weight. He feels its rough texture. He accepts its absurdity. Visual: a split screen. On one side, the animated Sisyphus strains, his face a mask of effort.
On the other, A modern office worker forces a painful smile during a video call. A nurse calmly cleans a spill, her face showing fatigue but acceptance. A parent sighs deeply before tackling a mountain of laundry. Narrator. So, stop pretending. Acknowledge the frustration. Name the absurdity. Say it out loud if you have to. This spreadsheet is my boulder today. This inbox is my mountain. This traffic jam is my eternal punishment. Giving it a name doesn't give it power. It takes the power back. It's the difference between being a victim of your fate and being a conscious participant in it. Honesty is the foundation of your revolt. Narrator. Camus points out that the most important moment in the myth isn't the struggle up the hill. It's the walk back down. This is what he called the hour of consciousness, the moment of pause. The breath. The boulder is gone, resting at the bottom. The work is over. For now. In this moment, Sisyphus is superior to his rock. This descent is your commute home. It's your lunch break. It's the 2 minutes you take to stare out the window between tasks. It is the space between the efforts. And this space is where you find your freedom. How do you use it? First, you detach. Visual, montage of descents. A person taking off a work uniform and changing into comfortable clothes. A chef sitting down to eat a simple meal after a chaotic dinner service. Someone putting on headphones and closing their eyes on a train. Narrator. You are not your job.
You are not your to-do list. You are not the boulder you push. It is something you do, not something you are. In that descent, remind yourself of the person who exists outside the struggle.
The parent, the friend, the artist, the dreamer. That person is the one walking freely down the hill. Second, you find the pebbles of joy. Sisyphus, walking down his mountain, is free to notice the color of the sky, the scent of the air, the feel of the wind. He is not pushing. He is only walking. Narrator. Your descent is your chance to notice the world that exists beyond the task.
The taste of your coffee. The song on the radio. The brief, friendly chat with a coworker. These aren't distractions from life, they are life. They are the moments that refuel your spirit for the next push.
This isn't just theory. It's a survival tactic proven in the most extreme conditions imaginable. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp, wrote about this very idea. He and his fellow prisoners were stripped of everything, their labor made horrifically meaningless. Their boulder was the epitome of human cruelty. Narrator. Yet, Frankl observed that the survivors were often those who could find a meaning, a freedom, that no one could take away. They mastered their mental descent. They could retreat into their minds, thinking of a loved one's face. They could find beauty in a sunset viewed over the barracks. They could choose their response to their suffering, even when they couldn't choose the suffering itself. Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." He was imagining Sisyphus happy in the scorched earth of the soul. If it's possible there, it's possible anywhere. Narrator. You've acknowledged the boulder. You've mastered the descent. Now, what about the push itself? How can you find meaning in the very act of meaningless labor? You redefine victory. The gods defined victory for Sisyphus as getting the boulder to stay at the top of the mountain. An impossible goal. He was meant to fail forever. But Sisyphus, in his rebellion, creates his own victory condition. His victory is not in the outcome, but in the effort. His victory is a perfectly executed push. A day of honest, strenuous effort. His victory is showing up. Visual, a montage of craft, a call center employee using a particularly kind and patient tone with a difficult customer. A janitor taking pride in a perfectly clean floor. A data entry clerk, organizing their work with meticulous precision. The focus is on the quality of the action, not the action itself. Narrator. This is the power of craftsmanship. It doesn't matter if you're writing a world-changing novel or an inter-office email. For that moment, you can choose to do it well. You can focus on the quality of your effort, not the importance of the task.
You can take pride in the how, even when you can't find meaning in the what. The push is non-negotiable. Your attitude toward it is. This creates a scornful rebellion.
The gods want you to despair at the pointlessness of your work. But by focusing on doing it with integrity and excellence, you are robbing them of their prize. You are telling them, you can make my labor futile, but you cannot make me mediocre. And finally, you realize you are not the only one on the mountain. Visual, we see other figures, semi-transparent, pushing their own boulders on the same barren hill as Sisyphus. Then, this morphs into modern scenes, office workers in a cubicle farm, each at their own desk, commuters, each in their own car in a traffic jam. We see one person offer another a supportive smile. A hand helps pick up spilled papers. Narrator, look around. Everyone is pushing a boulder of their own. A private struggle, a secret anxiety, a tedious task. Your meaning doesn't have to come from the rock. It can come from helping the person pushing next to you, a kind word, an offer of help, a shared moment of understanding. The myth isolates Sisyphus. But our world is not a myth. We are surrounded. The struggle itself can be the very thing that connects us. Visual, we return to the animated Sisyphus. He reaches the bottom of the hill. He looks at his hands, then at the boulder. He takes a deep breath and places his hands upon the cold stone, ready to begin again. But this time, his posture is not one of defeat, but of resolve. Narrator, acknowledge the absurdity. Reclaim your freedom in the pauses, and redefine victory through the quality of your effort. This is the wisdom of Sisyphus. It isn't a magical cure for life's difficulties. The boulder is still heavy, the hill is still steep, but the curse is broken. The struggle itself becomes the path, and the man who was meant to be a symbol of despair becomes a guide to unconquerable joy. Narrator, accepting the boulder is the foundation, but rebellion doesn't stop at acceptance. A true master of the absurd doesn't just push the rock they're given. They start to change its shape. This is the principle of agency. You may not be able to choose your mountain, but you can choose how you climb it. You can carve out a handhold. You can smooth a rough edge. You can find a better path. This isn't wishful thinking. It's a proven psychological concept called job crafting. Researchers discovered that the happiest and most engaged employees weren't necessarily the ones with the best jobs. They were the ones who actively reshaped their own roles. Like a sculptor working with a block of stone. They did it in 3 ways. Visual. A tired-looking librarian suddenly gets an idea. She starts rearranging a display to be more engaging and colorful. A child looks at it and smiles. Narrator first. They altered their tasks. They found small ways to emphasize the parts of the job they found meaningful and minimize the parts that drained them. They automated the tedious report so they could spend 10 more minutes helping a customer. They volunteered for the project that sparked their curiosity, even if it was extra work. They found a way to make the boulder their own. Visual. An office worker, looking isolated in a cubicle, makes a point of walking over to talk to a colleague instead of sending an email. They share a brief, genuine laugh. Narrator second. They changed their relationships. They consciously sought out the colleagues who energized them and offered support to those who were struggling. They transformed the workplace from a collection of people pushing their own rocks into a community of fellow climbers. The weight of the boulder feels different when you know you're not climbing alone. Narrator and third, and most powerfully, they reframed the work's purpose. They connected their daily push to a bigger picture. The accountant isn't just crunching numbers. She is ensuring the company's stability so hundreds of people can provide for their families. The coder isn't just writing lines of script. He is building a tool that will save people time and frustration. They looked at their boulder, and instead of seeing a meaningless rock, they saw the cornerstone of a cathedral. The purpose was there all along. They just had to choose to see it. Narrator, but what happens on the bad days? What happens when the project you crafted with care is canceled? When the colleague you connected with quits? When you look at your work and all you can see is a pointless, heavy rock?
What happens when the boulder slips? Because it will. The myth is clear on this. The boulder always rolls back down. There will be days when the absurdity wins.
When you feel the full, crushing weight of despair the gods intended. In these moments, the final lesson of Sisyphus is the most crucial. The fall is not a failure, It is part of the rhythm. Visual, a potter at a wheel. She's shaping a beautiful, intricate vase. Suddenly, it collapses into a lump of wet clay. She doesn't scream or break the wheel. She simply stops it, looks at the clay for a moment, and then calmly begins to gather it up to start again. Narrator, when your boulder tumbles back to the bottom, you have a choice. You can lie there, defeated. Or you can do what Sisyphus does. You can rest. You can observe. You can learn from the fall. Perhaps the path was too steep. Perhaps your grip was wrong. The moment of failure is a moment of pure information, stripped of ego. It is a chance to begin again, but this time, with more wisdom. Don't fight the feeling of frustration. Acknowledge it. Give it its space. Mourn the lost effort. But then, you must begin the walk back down the hill. That descent, after a failure, is the most defiant act of all. It is a declaration that the outcome does not define you. Only the dignity of the attempt does. Visual. We return to our modern characters. The office worker who received a harsh rejection on a proposal closes her laptop, takes a deep breath, and goes for a walk outside. The nurse who lost a patient sits quietly in her car for a few minutes before driving home. The parent whose carefully built block tower was just knocked over by their toddler sighs, then smiles, and starts putting 2 blocks together again. Narrator, this is resilience in its purest form. It's not about never falling. It's about the grace with which you get back up. It's about understanding that the meaning is not found at the summit, a place you will never permanently reach. The meaning is etched into the face of the boulder, on every single journey up the mountain, and in the strength you build on every single walk back down. Visual. We are back with the animated Sisyphus one last time. The sky is no longer a flat, oppressive gray, but is now filled with the subtle, beautiful colors of dawn. He is at the bottom of the hill. He looks at the boulder. He looks at his hands. He looks up the long path. He places his hands on the rock. Narrator, the alarm clock rings at 6 a.m. The face in the mirror is still tired, but the eyes are clear. The tasks are the same, but you are not. The boulder is waiting. It will always be waiting. It is the price of being alive. But it is no longer your punishment. It is your privilege. It is the raw material of your existence, the resistance against which you forge your strength, the absurd dance partner for your conscious rebellion. The hill is your canvas. The push is your art. And the choice, every single morning, to walk toward that boulder, place your hands upon it, and begin again. That is your freedom. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. And now, you know how. Visual. Close up on Sisyphus's hands as they grip the rock. He leans in, his muscles tense. He begins to push. The screen fades to black as the music reaches a final, soaring, triumphant chord that hangs in the air and then fades to silence. Narrator. So you have imagined Sisyphus happy. You understand the philosophy. But philosophy is not a spectator sport. It is a set of tools. It is a way of living. Understanding the myth gives you a map of the mountain, but to climb it day after day, you need practical techniques. You need a toolkit for the moments when inspiration fades and the sheer weight of the boulder becomes overwhelming. These are the tools to turn abstract rebellion into daily practice. Narrator. Look again at Sisyphus. When he is pushing, where is his mind? Is he thinking of the 1,000 times he has failed before? Is he dreading the endless pushes yet to come? No. To do so would be to invite madness. In that moment of exertion, he must be nowhere else but there, focused on the grit of the ground beneath his feet, the precise angle of his shoulder against the stone, the rhythm of his own breathing. He is completely absorbed in the task at hand. Psychologists call this a flow state. It's that magical feeling when you are so immersed in an activity that time seems to disappear. Your sense of self dissolves. The action itself becomes its own reward. Visual. Montage of flow states. A musician's fingers flying across a piano. Eyes closed. A programmer, completely still except for the rapid movement of their fingers on the keyboard. A chef plating a dish with intense, focused precision. Narrator. Flow is the enemy of despair. You cannot feel the futility of the whole mountain when you are entirely focused on conquering a single inch of it. This is a skill you can cultivate. Treat your boulder, whatever it is, as a craft. When you answer an email, don't just answer it. Try to write the clearest, most concise email you possibly can. When filing a report, focus on making it perfectly organized. Set a timer for 25 minutes and dedicate yourself, without distraction, to one single aspect of your push. By focusing on the immediate process, you detach from the agonizing outcome. You find meaning not in the destination, but in the quality of the journey itself. Narrator: the ancient Stoic philosophers, much like Camus, were obsessed with a single, life-altering question: what is truly up to us? Their answer was revolutionary. They argued that almost nothing is. You don't control the weather, the economy, or what other people think of you. You don't control whether your boss approves the project, or if the client is in a bad mood. The gods made sure Sisyphus could not control the most important thing, the ultimate fate of the boulder. This was the source of their intended torture. But the Stoics would say the gods made a fatal error. They left Sisyphus in command of his own mind. Visual: an animation draws a circle on the screen. Inside it, words appear: my effort, my integrity, my response, my perspective. Outside the circle, other words fly by and bounce off it: the deadline, the budget cuts, my coworkers' gossip. The final result: narrator, this is your circle of control, your true kingdom. Sisyphus can choose to push with all his might, or to slack off. He can choose to curse his fate, or to meet it with silent dignity. He can focus on the injustice, or on the feeling of the sun on his back during the descent. The boulder is outside his circle. His reaction to the boulder is entirely within it. Apply this relentlessly. When you feel anxiety or frustration, ask yourself this simple question: is the cause of this feeling inside my circle? Or outside? If it's outside, a canceled flight, a negative review, a crashing server, you must practice letting it go.
It is not your domain. Pour every ounce of your energy back into the things you do command: your next action, your attitude, the quality of your effort.
This is not passive. It is the ultimate strategic allocation of your energy. It is refusing to waste your strength fighting gravity itself, and instead using it to perfect your climb. Narrator: there is an old Buddhist parable. A man is struck by an arrow. The wound is painful, a fact of life. This is the first arrow. But then, the man begins to wail. Why me? This is terrible. I'll never recover. He obsesses over the pain, adding layers of mental anguish to his physical wound. This is the second arrow, the one he shoots into himself. The parable teaches that in life, the first arrow is unavoidable. Sickness, loss, failure, tedious work, these things happen. But the second arrow, that one is optional. Visual: we see the modern worker again. An email with harsh, negative feedback pops up on their screen. This is a first arrow, striking them. We see their face fall. Then, we see their internal monologue visualized. Thoughts like, I'm a failure, my boss hates me, swirl around their head, forming a second, larger arrow that they plunge into their own chest. Narrator: the boulder rolling back to the bottom of the hill is the first arrow. It is an objective event. It happens. The pain of wasted effort is real. The despair, the self-pity, the story you tell yourself that this is proof of your worthlessness, that is the second arrow. It's the difference between pain and suffering. Sisyphus, in his happiness, feels the sting of the first arrow every single day. He watches the boulder fall and feels the burn in his muscles for nothing, but he refuses to shoot the second arrow. He does not add a story of victimhood to his reality of effort. He simply accepts the reality and begins his walk back down the hill. When your project is rejected, when your effort goes unnoticed, when the boulder slips from your grasp, pause. Acknowledge the frustration. That is the first arrow, but do not immediately follow it with the second. Notice the urge to tell yourself a story of failure, and simply don't. Let the feeling exist, and then, like Sisyphus, turn your attention to the next step, the walk back down. Narrator: we praise things that are resilient, things that can take a hit and bounce back to their original shape. But there is a state that is even more powerful. A state beyond resilience, Consider the human body. When you lift a heavy weight, you create microscopic tears in your muscles.
A resilient muscle would simply heal back to how it was. But that's not what happens. The muscle heals back stronger than before. It doesn't just resist the stress, it feeds on it.
This is antifragility, the quality of growing stronger from shocks, volatility, and disorder. On another, a package is stamped "Return to sender." On the third, a forest fire rages, and then new, vibrant green shoots emerge from the blackened soil. Narrator: the gods thought their punishment was perfect. They believed the endless, repetitive strain would make Sisyphus's spirit fragile, that it would eventually shatter. They were wrong. They accidentally designed the perfect gym. With every push up the mountain, Sisyphus's body becomes stronger. With every failure at the peak, his mind becomes more resolute. With every walk back down, his acceptance deepens. The very thing designed to destroy him becomes the source of his unconquerable strength. He doesn't just endure his fate. He profits from it. Look at your own boulder, not as a burden to be tolerated, but as a form of resistance training for your character. That infuriating colleague is an opportunity to practice patience. That impossible deadline is a chance to cultivate focus under pressure. That colossal failure is a seminar in humility and perseverance. Don't just ask, "How can I survive this?" Ask, "How can this make me stronger?" That is the question that transforms the curse into a crucible.